All right, good morning. Just wanted to show real quick the frame that I've coated. It has since rained about, I don't know, 3 or 4 days after I coated it, but turned out really nice. It's really windy out here today, so I apologize in advance for any wind noise you may hear. But I did my normal process where I sanded it down, really just ground it down with a wire wheel, got all the grease removed from just the little inside crevices of the frame. I then put phosphoric acid all over it to kill any surface rust and or rust that was developing, and let that sit for a day. And once it was dry, I cleaned it with some mineral spirits and then sprayed it. And this time, instead of using the two-part Summit chassis shield paint that I've used in the past, I went with the stuff that Matt Cubic uses on his channel, Cubic Motorsports on YouTube. That stuff is called, it's by Miracle. It's Chassis Saver, and he loves it and has done, it's done very, very well for him over the past. So it's a little dusty right now just because the wind's been blowing and whatnot. It's been about a week now, that I guess total, that it's been done and dry, and it just looks really clean, really clean. I did pull these off and paint them as well underneath and whatnot, so I just put those all back on. But that turned out really well. About to start bolting in the QA1 suspension, but I did spray it. I used a 1.8 millimeter tip on my DeVilbiss spray gun, and it's just a primer gun that I used, but worked really well. I did have to thin it down 10%. They say you can thin it up to 15% on the Miracle spec sheet, the chassis shield not just chassis saver spec sheet. So anyways, I'm gonna start putting QA1 back together, because I mocked it all up, drilled all the holes, everything's been prepped. Then I prepped the frame, degreased it, phosphoric acid, and then sprayed it with the chassis saver paint. And now it's time to rebolt on all the QA1 suspension, front and rear, and get things ready for the next phase, which is essentially brakes, full suspension system done, wheels and tires rolling around. I will then drop the Coyote motor in it and get the transmission cross member bolted in, and it'll be ready for a body again. So pretty exciting. Everything's turned out really well. I've been very happy with what I've used thus far. The only thing that I wish Chassis Saver was a little different with was just the cleanup. It's a lot like Pour 15 if you've ever used it. And once it dries, man, it just doesn't come off, which is awesome. But like Matt Cubic says, he swears by this Chassis Saver. He put it on his Ultimate Crew Cab, and he's put it on many of his other builds, and he loves it. And I have to say, spraying it was just easy to work with. The cleanup was the hardest part, and then just as far as how smooth everything is, it really just laid down perfect. But this frame is in phenomenal shape. And I had, just so you all know, they do recommend putting a bar across here, welding it in, or something to stabilize. I had the bumper bolted in for quite some time, and when I went to spray, I pulled it off, and I was kind of wondering if this would spring any, because these frame rails tend to twist sometimes. They didn't move at all. So anyways, just food for thought. Obviously you wouldn't want to leave it like this for a really long time, but it won't matter because I'm about to bolt this QA1 suspension system in, and that will stabilize everything and strengthen it up real well. And anyways, hope you guys enjoy the video. I will be adding this to a series with the QA1 suspension system. So I did want to touch base one more time. It's only been a moment. You can tell by the shadow where I'm standing. I just slid this in, and this lower, essentially K member, cross member from QA1. I just have things just loosely put in here. No big deal. Everything just slid right in. Like I said, the frame didn't spring away or anything weird. It was just, I slid this up. Obviously, I've not tightened anything down. But one thing I thought I should bring up is this back cross member here. So this guy here, where the emergency brake cables go through and everything, I ran into an issue. So QA1 in the rear suspension system has you bolt to this lower bolt and this lower bolt where rivets are generally held, as well as rivets here and here. There's that bracket that goes here. Well, in order to get the QA1 bolts in right here with the nuts, it hits a part of the bracket, which I'm going to show you right now, that prohibits the bolt and nut and washer to pass through. And that's right here. So this guy. So when this is up, and these are interchangeable side by side, but so when this is up like that, if you see that bolt hole, right there, this guy right here where my finger's poking through, that would run into right here. And you can see I've notched these. So I had to remove the rest of the rivets. I already had to remove the bottom rivets, these two here. So just to remove those two was no big deal in order for the nut and washer to fit right here. Otherwise, there's just no way to get a nut and washer on there, or even the bolt head through. So I had to round these out. And QA1 does not touch that in their instructions that I found. So this is just a little tidbit to help you. I did on both sides, on both of these brackets, left and right. I did that. So now when I put them back in, the QA1 bottom bracket that rides along the frame rail here, it will come up. New QA1 bolts will go through here, through the frame, down, and then bolts to the side as well as through that hole I was just pointing at right there. Anyways, I just wanted to give you that. That's food for thought. And maybe in your application you don't have this high ridge right here where the bolt will be in the way. I did, so I had to grind those down, and then I painted them with the same chassis saver. So hope that helped. Okay, me again. It's been about an hour and a half since I paused you before. So I got everything tightened and torqued down now on this front QA1 suspension. This bracket here that connects to two K members, because this top piece is separate from the bottom piece. Pretty simple. They give you slots, so there's a little bit of wiggle room in getting those bolts in. These bolts here, they go to this bracket, which runs along. Actually, this is just flipped. It's just 180 out. Anyways, it's this L-shaped bracket that bolts to the bottom and the sides with 3 bolts and 1 right here. And then these 2 are to support this front cross member, this top cross member that is for the motor support, and the top A-arms as well. Anyways, the motor support will go here and then comes up and gets bolted in. Anyways, I just wanted to show you guys that real quick. I torqued all the bolts down to spec. I believe it was 75 foot-pounds, what they had written. Everything's tight now. These top bolts, this is why I did it before I painted. You have to drill 3 of these 4 holes, and then you know, of course, bolt those in, and they lined up perfectly when I dropped this back in. So these frame slides here on each side, the left and right side of the frame, thankfully they didn't bend or twist or anything. Everything just slid right in. There were no like manhandling anything. These last 2 bolts here just kind of strengthen that cross member, the bottom main support that everything runs off of. Everything's sitting real nice and tight right now. Very happy with the fit and finish of this QA1 kit. I've heard some horror stories of the Coyote motor sitting too far back, so I'm gonna see what it looks like once I get everything bolted in. I have some measurements of my last several builds I've done, as well as my 69 high boy that's sitting in there, so I have an idea of where everything's gonna sit. But that being said, I may have to adjust those QA1 motor mounts because I've heard that it sits too far back, about an inch and a half too far back. So I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. Like I said, thankfully I took a lot of measurements before, and so I have a pretty good idea where it needs to land. I'm going to move on to the back now. As I mentioned, these cross member, I guess, support brackets that go from here down to the frame, they tie in to the QA1 system. I removed them because I had to. It wasn't going to fit with the side bolts that go here and here. Yeah, so the only way to do it was to remove them, and get ready for that. And then that worked out fine with painting. Like I said, I tried to coat everything really well. I want this thing to last forever. You know, I haven't decided whether I'm keeping this for myself or gonna sell it, but I'm building it like I'm keeping it for myself and doing it the best I know how with the very best parts you can find. And I'm excited. I'm excited to see what happens here, how it handles, and just finish of everything. So far, the QA1 kit has been phenomenal, and it's pretty awesome. I'm pretty excited about it. So anyways, I'll touch base here with you in just a moment. I have these QA1 pieces sitting here. I just have them sitting here because it's easier to store them this way than try and leave them in the box. Now you can see when you're mocking everything up, there's a lot, you know, especially because I hadn't coated the frame yet, because I didn't want to coat the frame until I was done cutting and removing all the pieces. But I'm going to clean these up a little bit with some WD-40 and just get some of this rust dust off of here so it's ready for my brand new painted frame, or at least my very old painted frame that's been coated and ready for this QA1 kit. My plan is this week to get all the QA1 done, front and rear, and sitting on its 4 wheels and tires again. So there's a lot of work to get done. I also have a normal full-time job, and so this is going to be tough to get done, but that's my goal this week, to get this done. And that'll probably end that video at the end of the week when everything's rolling again and on all 4s. Now, as I showed in the previous video of the Willwood rear disc brake kit, I did on the Ford 9-inch. The Ford 9-inch is 100% ready to go. So that one's already built, brakes are on. So literally it's just getting all the, you know, the QA1 suspension system hooked up to that rear end and sitting on its coilovers. And I was going to do a video showing you how to build the coilovers, but there's plenty of QA1 videos of putting those coilovers together. They're very simple. So I've already got those put together. So the biggest hurdle is just getting all the Willwood front brakes on, and I'm doing the 13-inch or 12.88-inch front rotors with the 6-piston calipers. The rear has a 12.88 with 4-piston calipers, Willwood disc brakes. So pretty excited. Like I said, I'm hoping in the next 2 weeks to have the Coyote in, transmission cross member in, it rolling around on its own and ready for the cab. So the cab's not ready yet. I'm still in the middle of paint work on that and lots of sanding and whatnot. But this week I wanted to, it's a beautiful week. There's no weather in the forecast other than some wind. So I want to get this rolling again on all four wheels and tires. And well, we'll talk to you shortly. All right, it's a little bit later in the afternoon. I've got the rear QA1 bolted up to this 1970 F100. So the rear took me the longest to mock up and stuff before I painted the frame, and it just has a lot of holes, and you're lining below and the sides, and then the old rivets they weren't perfect when they came out, and so I had to drill out some of the holes just to make sure they were nice and clean. There were a lot of burrs. Anyways, everything's in, everything's bolted up nice and tight. And so this frame, when you grabbed it side to side and kind of shook it, it was pretty flimsy. And now there really isn't any play. It is surprising how much this strengthens up the frame. Now, one other part that I wanted to show, and I've shown this previously, but I used the CPP long bed to short bed frame kit, which used these 4 bolts here, these 4 bolts here, and a bunch of bolts on the bottom and on the top. That being said, I was, of course, not having done this before, not as far as using CPP's short bed kit. I've never used that until now. I was excited about how much the QA1 kit would integrate and strengthen. So this cross member here that goes across is incredibly stout. There's 4 7/16 bolts that go through that connect this plate to this plate. 2 more 7/16 that go through the CPP plate and the frame and this cross member. And it is, and then of course one up here, and same on the other side. That thing is so stiff, and I dare say is the toughest part of this kit. Installing the QA1 thus far, getting this cross member in, getting all those 4 bolts, getting them, get the nuts all in the washers on the back side, getting all the holes drilled and so forth, has been, in my opinion, the toughest part of the QA1 rear suspension kit. Here are those brackets that are bolted in and integrated. So there's the side bolt, there's the bottom bolt of this support. This is the OEM plate, and then I use 3/8 grade 8 flange hardware to resecure it all. And you can see right here where I had to notch this bracket on every side. To not do that nut and washer do not go in easily. In fact, there almost isn't any way of getting them in. So just something, if you're going to do this rear kit for QA1, I would recommend taking these last 2 rivets, because you have to take these rivets out anyways to put this bottom QA1 kit in. But go ahead and take the last 2, get this plate out. That gives you more room to notch that plate just a little. Anyways, I am extremely impressed thus far with this QA1 kit. And it's been fun. It's been a little challenging just because I haven't done the QA1 kit before. But this, it's stout. It really is a strong kit. And how much it has strengthened the frame just side to side, it is impressive. It used to be almost flimsy, and now it's stiff. So pretty excited. What's left today is just getting, some of the A-arms bolted up. I might even put the front coil levers in and just start, tightening up and getting the suspension system in for the front. And then I've got a little bracket to retain the emergency brake or parking brake assembly. Goes here, lifts the cable up just over this, and then there's a pivot point that you mount here for the parking brake. So I might get all that installed today and then call it a day. The weather has changed a little bit and it might rain on Wednesday. I pulled this out so I had more room to do all this QA1 kit. And then of course to paint the frame. So I'm debating on putting this back in the garage before it starts raining, but it's all powder coated stuff. Frame's all coated and ready for any kind of weather that's going to be thrown at it. So I'm not too worried about it, but definitely before I put all the brake kit on and stuff, I'll make sure it's inside the shop. But again, just wanted to show you the QA1 kit. There's lots of bolts and just some tighter areas for tightening everything down. So in all reality, it took a little while. It's taken me a couple of hours to get the rear kit installed. Yeah, that's about it. But everything's tight and torqued down to spec per QA1's instructions. Again, this front cross member here, so it'll have a short, almost like drag link tie rod in that goes down, connects to the torsion to the Ford 9-inch. And anyways, yeah, pretty exciting. But hope you guys enjoy the video. I'll touch base later this week once all the front suspension system's in and the brake system's in, along with the rear Ford 9-inch all bolted up and set up. So it'll be pretty exciting. Cheers. Good afternoon. Shane here again. Just wanted to show you guys some progress made. It's been a few days since my last video, and I've got the Coyote Swap QA1 brackets in place. I finished connecting all the front end, sway bars installed, the spindles are in, and of course the coilovers and so forth, they're all installed. I have not finished this spindle. I messed up the wheel hub seal on the inner side of the hub, and so I ordered a new one from Willwood. But everything else is installed and it's just ready to get tied up, buttoned up. Wanted to touch base in regards to the rear. I just finished installing the QA1 rear suspension, and there's a few videos on this installation, so I felt like it wasn't necessary to go over every detail. However, in my last segment I did explain this cross member and so forth, and touch base on some of the things I did to get that installed. That was probably the hardest thing to install, as I mentioned in my last video. Everything else was very straightforward. Yeah, really, there's nothing. I can't set the pinion angle yet until the motor's in and transmission cross members in, so then I can set the pinion angle, and you do that right here with this adjustment. And then if your tire's not perfectly center, of course, you have these Panhard bars. Well, since these are they're just the torsion bars, and the Panhard's back here. And there's an adjustment there. I got a little bit of never sees on there that I need to clean up. But anyways, it was a pretty straightforward. I've already touched base with this bracket and this in my Willwood install on the Ford 9-inch. As I said, I got the 12.88 rotors in the rear, 4 piston calipers. I got the 12.88 size rotors up front with the 6 piston calipers. You can see it's a beautiful job. The hub's really clean, very clean install. There's the 6 piston and rotors. And the kit I installed up front was the cross-drilled and slotted rotors. And the kit in the rear, I ordered the wrong kit, but so they're not cross-drilled. They're not drilled in cross, so the cooling isn't the exact same. But the size of the rotor is the same, and the 4-piston caliper essentially will stop this thing on a dime anyway. So I'm not really worried about it. I thought about doing some autocross with it, but I've kind of since decided not to. I just want this thing to be an incredible handling daily driver, and that's what I'm building. And if for some reason I wanted to sell it and someone wanted to set it up for autocross, which this QA1 system is set up for, it would be super easy to just replace those rotors. So anyways, I'm not too worried about it. These things are still going to stop incredibly fast, and everything's going to work the way it is. Now, I have not, and obviously the cab's not in, so I can't install the pivot arm for the parking brake, because this is a relocation bracket for QA1. It shifts it over. This will come over, the arm comes here, and then the parking brake cables will go on there. And I'm using the Willwood kit to do the parking brakes, which adapt easily to the Willwood parking brake on each side of the Ford 9-inch kit that they have. The QA1 had me set this at the middle. That's what the instructions said. But when the ride height set, they want this as close to level as possible. There was no way with it this high. Now, again, I'm doing the 3 to 5 inch drop instead of the 5 to 7. So I dropped it down 2 slots, and even then it's at an angle. So when you put the bed on here, it's only going to sag a little bit. And then once I set that ride height, then with the coilovers, it should be a pretty simple setup. Now, QA1's coilover instructions are with the knob to set it at around 6 if you're just doing daily driving. And then if you're doing autocross or track racing, well, then obviously go stiffer. I have it set at a 7. I just did 7 front, 7 rear. I want to see how that rides and then decide if I want to, soften it or stiffen it up. I'm running American Racing wheels. These are 18 by 10 inch wheels, front and rear. I was going to do the 305 35 R18 tires all the way around. But again, this is going to be more of a daily driver. And so in that set, they really don't have kind of an all-season tire for it. So in that size, the 305 35 R18. So I went with a 285 40 R18. Great height. It actually matches the front. In fact, if you go on QA1's F100, the blue one that they build and they have videos on, essentially promoting their product. They do a lot of autocross racing with it and so forth, and they've got some spectacular videos if you want to go check that truck out. Essentially, they're running the 285 40 R18 up front, just like I am. I just chose to do all 4 the same size. If I want to get a set of 305 35 R18s, I can easily. So no big deal. And I might even get a set just for the rear, just to see how sticky this is. Now, I'm running the in-cab fuel tank with my Coyote swap. That will eventually get transferred back here. And all you got to do is remove these rivets and slide this cross member back, and you can put a tank back here. Or you can go with the Solus Innovations tank, and you don't have to move that cross member. So there are options here for the rear mounted tank. Right now, like I said, I've got enough money invested in this thing. It is going to be a spectacular driver, and I have no worries about it at all. So I would, as I said, like eventually to get the fuel tank in the rear, just to get some weight over the back tires. I am going to do a full short bed build. I'm working with 2 different vendors right now, just trying to get some things figured out. But one of them I'm going to buy that kit from, and I'm going to build the short bed for it, so it'll brand new sheet metal for the rear. I was going to shorten this one up, but I've decided not to. It's in good shape. It just, I need to do a lot of little things to it to get it just right. And I thought, well, maybe I will just build a brand new bed for it. So that's kind of the idea. Everything else, like I said, was very straightforward. They also, as in QA1, recommended putting it on the 3rd bolt down. I went 1 bolt down. Reason why is because this Panhard bar, they want it as level as possible, but that's not possible with the 3 to 5 inch kit following their instructions. So I dropped it 1, and there's plenty of settings. I got 2 more holes I can go down, but right now that bar is got an angle, but it's not too bad. So once the weight of the bed's on and then the fuel tank is all set, I think this will be pretty close to level. If I need to drop that, it'll be the last bolt on both of those. But again, not too worried about it. I'll get that taken care of once the ride height is set and everything's kind of, all the weight's on the back of the bed. So later this week, I will get the Coyote motor, the Gen 2, the 6R80 installed in here. A lot of people have said these QA1 mounts bring it too far forward, or sorry, too far back against the firewall. It needs to come forward about 1 inch. So I've got some adjustable motor mounts that I'm going to use, and if they work out, they should bring it up about 1 inch to the front. If they do work just the way I hope, I will post a video about them and show you what I did, so it'll be easier for you to do for yourself in the future. So other than getting the Coyote motor installed, I have some brake lines to run. I'm still going to run the same rear one. I'm just going to adapt it, go to each side. That'll be pretty simple. Just using the same simple, but this time it's stainless, inline tube stainless to go to each side. And I'll flare them and then put the soft hose to each of the wheel woods. So it should be a pretty simple setup. Haven't decided exactly what I'm going to do for the front, but I'm not going to do that until the motor is in and in place and I know which headers I'm using. I've got 3 different sets of headers for different builds, and I haven't decided which one I'm going to go with. Since the QA1 kit kind of centers the motor, instead of having it so offset to the passenger side, it centers it a little bit more. It's still going to be offset, but not as much as it was from Ford. So once I get everything in place, I'll get brake lines run, tie it in. Obviously, I'll finish this wheelwood brake install and hub install on the front. That'll be later this week. And like I said, I think I'm getting pretty close here. This thing is going to be awesome. So plan is Coyote cross member in for the transmission, all the exhaust in, then I'll put the cab on and parking brake assembly and so forth, and then I'll build the bed for it at the very end. So cool process. I'm really excited about these American Racing 18x10 wheels. I think they look great. These are the gloss black with the chrome or the polished aluminum machined edge, and I wanted that look because I'm still retaining just new trim, and I think it would look good with the black with a little bit of the aluminum, matching that aluminum with the black. I think it'll just really go well with the blue. So pretty excited. This thing is really coming together, and I can't say enough about QA1's kit. It is a good kit. The instructions have been clear. Just a couple little adjustments that I've made along the way, but again, no big deal. Nothing that is a showstopper in any way. So I hope you guys enjoy this video. I'm going to go ahead and post this thing just so you can see all the framework I've done with the front install, and it'll be a full QA1 set video. And this is going to end it for us. Thanks again. Cheers.